Welcome, LinkedIn, to yet another live discussion. I'm Marc Stcherbina, performance coach, keynote speaker, and founder of Winning EQ. And this is the second of a series of LinkedIn live discussions I'll be hosting over the next coming weeks around this topic of work enjoyment. And the reason why this topic's so important to me is when I think back to my life-defining rugby career-ending injury, it's got me committed to making the most of this second chance at life. And I want that for other people as well. And when you think about it, we on average spend over a third of our lives at work. So doesn't it make sense that we try and make it as enjoyable as possible? We had Brett Brauman earlier this week, who is the Managing Director of People and Experience at Intercare Health. And he shared with us his most enjoyable stint of work was with Feedonomics, an e-commerce company based out of Los Angeles, where he was the head of culture there. And he attributed a lot of that culture and his enjoyment to its co-founder and CEO, Shawn Lipman. Well, guess what? You guessed it. We have Shawn Lipman with us today to share with us his perspective on what it took to create that culture that people loved working for and how it correlates with high performance as well. He is a former rugby player himself as well, USA Rugby Hall of Famer. In fact, he has since retired from being a business owner and CEO and now spends a lot of his time advising other businesses, traveling the world, and playing a lot of pickleball. In fact, I believe that he is unofficially ranked number one in his community at Hidden Hills, California. He can correct me when he comes in. But with great pleasure, I want to welcome Shawn Lipman, who is a dear friend and a mentor of mine who gave me my first opportunity as a corporate leadership coach. I owe a lot to this man, and you're going to love this discussion. So without any further ado, welcome in Shawn Lipman, everybody.
Hey, Marc. I think that the point of clarification is I'm ranked number one at my house by me. And okay. There are house rules as well. So within the context of the house rules, yes. So thanks. I just don't want to seem bigger than it really is.
Like I said, this is a really important discussion we're going to have today, and I can't think of anyone better than yourself. We talk about work enjoyment, which means a lot of things to different people. So what do you think when you hear work enjoyment? What does enjoyment mean to you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I wanted to try to distill it into a sentence because I think that will allow us to kind of expand on it. But it's not about being entertained. I think a lot of people think of enjoyment as entertainment or fun. It means basically bringing purpose, bringing joy into something that you're actively participating in. When you're dealing with other people, working towards a common cause, being involved in something that gives you fulfillment, contributing, feeling trusted, feeling like you're making an impact, feeling like you have purpose. That's what enjoyment is about. And a lot of people think it's kind of, there's an element of like fluff to the word, right? It's, why do people need to enjoy something that's as important as work? If you look at any successful team, organization, athletes, obviously we come from an athletic background. When you're enjoying what you're doing, means that you have a much better chance of succeeding at it. You will be better. And if you think about business, which is the ultimate competition, right? The stakes are exceptionally high, and the scoreboard is very clear. If you aren't able to give your company and your organization every possible advantage, which is in sports, you try best nutrition, best sleep habits, best SNC, training, tactics, strategy. In business, it's the same. And yet the most important thing that every company has, whether they got 2 employees or thousands of employees, whether they're using AI or not AI, which is now the big discussion about, who needs people anymore? Who needs a culture? It gives you that, it's called, you always win on the top 2%, right? And the top 2% as a person is in your head, and in a company, it's your people. And if you can supercharge your people, You give yourself a better chance of being competitive and winning.
Mm. Shawn, you mentioned some really interesting points and important points about the correlation between high performance and enjoyment. I think a lot of business leaders feel like it's a nice to have, but can also be distracting and get in the way. You touched on the changing environment, work, the workplace, the state of the world geopolitically. We had a fantastic discussion yesterday just to kind of brainstorm some points around today. I wish we'd press record because you came up with some incredibly poignant and important points around the state of the world that we live in. Why is creating a culture that people can enjoy and also perform well at so important in today's climate?
Well, I think it's important. It's been important forever. I think more so now than ever before, because you have so much noise in the world right now, and you have so much disconnect between people, constantly bombarded with, for the most part, negative inputs. And it's not just about politics; it's about how AI is going to take our jobs, and so people are on edge. People that are working in companies are worried. People that are looking to get jobs are worried. People that have gone to college now and coming out and finding that something that they studied for is potentially not necessarily going to be viable for them anymore. Economic pressures. I think the world is just at a place right now that when you want to compete in business, in the context of what we're discussing, what you have to try to do is find a place where people can come. And I think we did a relatively good job at Feedonomics with it, is we allowed people to park all of that at the door.
Mm.
And for the time they came to work, we created an environment where it was very clear to everybody what our underlying principles were. And they were non-negotiable. And we did a lot of things, and we can spend hours and hours about what we did to actually execute and operationalize culture. Because you can't just say we're going to have a great culture and put a bunch of posters on the wall and then everybody's good. That can be very dangerous, because if you're not actually acting on the things that you're saying, you get caught out really quickly and you will have a fractured team. So I always go back to, I have a unique experience in having run other companies before, and learned a lot on the way, how to do things and how not to do things, which is ultimately how you do learn. And in sports as well, as a player, a captain, and a coach. And so this all is the confluence of having lived life and seeing what does it take to mobilize people to want to do more than just collecting a paycheck. And the other one is you can't bully people into working hard or playing hard. They'll do what they need to do based on what they feel they want to bring. So you have to have something that's more than just either leading by fear or leading by incentive. The incentive has got to come from something that provides people with a higher purpose. And that's not an easy thing to do, but if you can do it, you supercharge yourself. You effectively, it's a bad word maybe, but you weaponize culture in a way that it gives you the best opportunity to compete in a very competitive world.
I want to go back to what you were saying, again, using Feedonomics as an example and what you built there. Let's talk about actually two-pronged question. Let's start with a little bit more detail on how you built it from the ground up. You came in, you mentioned you can't just say, let's have a good culture and then put it on the wall, set it and forget it. It was very intentional from the beginning for you and the other founders. Tell us a little bit more about that, how you started with this culture-led mindset.
Look, for me, it was the continuation of at that point in time 30 years of learning in business and 40 plus years of learning in sport. So when I came into, when we started Feedonomics, I'd come in a little bit earlier because we had a small digital marketing agency, which my partner Gary had started bringing in a group of people that were exceptionally dysfunctional.
Mm.
And so I said, well, look, I'll come in and I'll try to help you herd the cats. It was just chaos. And then while we were running this agency, other two partners who are geniuses built this fantastic product, which was the genesis of Feedonomics, which we then started the company. And so partly because I was already at a place where I had already run a company, I had gone through starting a company as a young man, kind of just learning on the job, and then getting a little bit more directed by having like Chris Grimm, who came and joined us, and having a coach teach the coach to a large extent, and just constantly wanting to learn how to be better. Part of it is a competitive element. How do you get an edge, And then I also got involved in coaching. At that point in time, I'd been a captain of a rugby team for many years, and I had learned what worked because it didn't work. The kind of screaming, shouting, one size fits all approach. And then I started kind of unlocking because I wanted to succeed. I didn't just want to be right. I wanted to win. And so by the time I came to Feedonomics, even before we hired our first employee, I had already a big bucket of tools in my back pocket. I was just ready. 51, 52 years old. And so it wasn't like we had to and it was very fortunate for us because we didn't have to figure it all out. I already knew what it would take. And so we brought in this, you bring your principles from everywhere, but there was a very clear set of principles outlined in the Jet Legacy book, which was about the All Blacks, which at that time were the most successful sporting team of all time in any sport. And their principles were relatively simple. When you read them, anyone would look at them and say, well, that makes total sense. Very, very difficult to operationalize. And but I said to the guys, look, if we're going to build this company, the time to build the culture is not after you've brought people in and then figure out what you stand for. We're going to do it from day one. And to their credit, they all said 100%, let's do it. And all four very disparate people. It's not like we're all exactly the same. It's not like we all looked at the world the same, but everybody saw the value in it. And I think that was a big reason why it succeeded, because if you have a group of leaders who don't 100% commit and align to a set of principles, whatever they are, you're going to create fracture. You're going to have no clarity. And employees, whether you got 10 employees or when we left, we were around 500 people, it creates confusion. It creates chaos. And so your business starts running you. You're not running your business. And so it just created absolute clarity. There was no ambiguity ever in the company about how we did things. It gave us the roadmap for how we behaved, not only internally, but externally with our clients and the world. And then if people didn't like that, which is fine, they couldn't be part of it.
Yeah.
And so we made it very hard to become a part of that team. And obviously we went through periods of growth where we kind of rushed hires. We paid the price for it. But when we were very deliberate, and then we operationalized it with Brett coming in, and then as we grew, we became exceptionally tough about who could come and become part of our team. Now, they say that not everybody can be an All Black, and our statement was not everybody can be a Fido. Yeah. And we didn't pay. We were a bootstrap company. We didn't have capital. We didn't have outside capital. So we couldn't compete by just paying as much. We didn't have great benefits. But what we did was we gave people opportunity to truly, truly grow, to truly learn, and to be part of something that they felt was bigger than themselves. We put the individual behind the team. And for people who like that, we had people who came from Google making significantly more money, but they came because they said, I want to be part of this thing. I want to be part of something that's like this. But when you make that commitment, you got to stick with it. You can't do it as an experiment. You either got to do it or you shouldn't do it at all. And our retention rate was 92%. When I look back, I'm sorry, Marc, I'm just talking, but
Please.
When I reflect back on that time with Feedonomics, you say, well, what was the benefit of this whole culture enjoyment thing? And our culture wasn't one of enjoyment. Our culture was one of high performance.
Yeah.
And in pursuit of a culture of high performance, the result was enjoyment. People didn't always have fun. People worked their asses off.
Yeah.
But they knew we cared. They knew that we were there to back them up. If I knew somebody in customer service was overworked and nobody else could step in, I would step in and help them. If somebody needed help closing a deal, I would. Rob would, Brian would, Gary would. The owners of the company would roll up their sleeves and what we called sweeping the sheds. And when the captains of the team are the last one that leave the changing room and are the ones that are making sure that nobody cleans up after them, they're the ones that keep it looking. That translates into how you respond to your emails, how quickly you get back to your customer when they need something, how much diligence you take in preparing work. It's called sweeping the sheds. You don't leave anything half done. And so these are the things that made the company special. And we said to people, if you want to go somewhere, we want, they call it leaving the jersey in a better place. Not everyone's going to stay forever.
Mm-hmm.
So for our perspective was, and I would tell people first month, generally in the first 2 weeks, I would meet with everyone, and nobody got hired at that company without meeting with either me or Brian for the longest time. And then I would meet with every single new employee, either one-on-one in a small group. And the first thing they heard about was these basic rules, which is we don't expect that you're going to be here forever. Mm-hmm. We hope you will. But while you're here, we're going to do everything we can to give you the tools, the skills, the expertise. So the time that you spent with us is going to be one of the richest times in your professional life.
Mm.
So when you go on, you can say, I was a feeder. And I can't tell you how many clients we got when our employees would leave and then bring us in at their new company. I can't tell you how many people came back to us. We said, what's it? If you love them, let them go. If they come back, they loved you or whatever. What's the other one? If they don't come back, hunt them down and kill them or something. And they came back, and we said, listen, the only way a lot of people we were their first or second job. So we said the only way they're going to appreciate how special and magical this place is by letting them go. Go. And so we said to people, we know people are going to be looking to come and hire you. Obviously, people are getting people on LinkedIn all the time. We said, talk to us about it. Mm-hmm. We're not going to punish you for it because there's no point in pretending that nobody's coming, your people aren't necessarily looking. They should look outside. They should be looking to see if there's better opportunity, because if we can't provide them the best opportunity, they should go somewhere else. And people thought I would say to them, come talk to us and we'll mentor you. Go to the interviews, go and learn, see what it is, then come back to us. And if we think that opportunity is better for you, we will never, ever stand in your way. And that really helped us, because now we didn't have to worry that people were kind of, looking to go and suddenly coming and surprising us and saying, oh, I'm leaving. So those are the kinds of, but everything I've discussed right now is based on one thing, trust.
Yeah.
It was based on trust. You cannot have that organization if you haven't created a foundation of trust. And mm-hmm. Trust is not something where you just say, and I'm speaking fast because I know we've only got 35 minutes, but trust is not something you can just say, trust me.
Yeah.
You have to show it in your actions. And so we couldn't expect our people to do extraordinary things until we showed them, when we said that our foundation as an organization was first trust, then we could have hard discussions with them. Then we could say, listen, this is not working. You're not doing this. We need to give you some corrective action. We need to educate you. You made a mistake, and they wouldn't get all kind of defensive because they trusted that it was coming from a place of performance enhancement for them and for the company. And everyone talks about results. But whenever we had problems with a team, with a leader, with an employee, I didn't default, and I never default to the fact that what's their problem. I always look to the coach. I never look to the player.
Yeah.
Did we do enough to train that person? They didn't do that thing properly. Human error, that's a good learning opportunity. But the other one is systemically, did we give them the right training? Did we explain to them not how to do this thing, but why are you doing this thing? So the first thing we would tell our people is, if anyone ever tells you, asks you to do something, and you ask them why, and they say to you, just do it, or that's the way we've always done it, you are required, not asked, you're required to go to the next level up and say, I asked my supervisor why we're doing this, and I'm not telling on them. Shawn told me the rule in this company is we've got to escalate. And if they say to you, just do it, then you escalate. You escalate all the way to me. Because the problem is not that they're saying to them, just do it. The problem is we as an organization are not learning. And in an environment in the world today, which changes second by second, the system you set up yesterday doesn't work the next day. So you have to have your team members constantly questioning why you're doing something. Because the reason you set up a system or a process a year ago, a month ago, may no longer be valid. So you want to be creating an environment where people are questioning and questioning and questioning all the time without repercussion. It's a gift they're giving you by saying, I don't understand. And that's really what created the magic. I think that's what created the magic of what we created.
Shawnee, so many leadership lessons in that little monologue there. Thank you. Trust, how to create trust, right? Committed to a learning environment. You put the mechanisms in place that held yourselves accountable to that. The accountability is another word that was coming up over and over and over again. We got some former favorite Fidos with us. I just put up a comment from Yaz. Welcome, Yaz. She agrees wholeheartedly with this idea of building trust through transparent, authentic communication. We also have emphasizing again the culture that you built and why Fidos loved it there so much. Troy, another rock star of the company, stopped by and he said this, and he was talking about also you wanted people to grow. You mentioned it yourself. We want to create an environment where people feel like they can grow in this place. Another element of enjoyment for me. Enjoyment doesn't just mean having fun. I'm going to keep coming back to that. Enjoyment is being challenged and overcoming challenges. Enjoyment is connection, building relationships and trust. We enjoy that when our work has that for us. And when your organization says, all right, if you're not right for this role we brought you in for, where else can we place you? And I saw that time and time again at Feedonomics, thanks to the leadership that's in place. Look who else is here.
I mean, if you think about it, Marc, the best people that you can hire for a job in a company, assuming they're the right people, is the people you got. If you think how hard it is to hire new people and to culturalize them and have them listen to my monologue ad nauseum again and again and again.
Yeah.
You know, that's the one thing, you know, people would say to me, like, I had my own 360 with the team once, and you know, I got some really good feedback, because sometimes you think you know what you're doing. And I shared it with the company and I said, look, I had my 360 and I'm going to tell you some of the things that I got back on my 360. And I'm sharing it with you because I am now going to make an attempt to fix some of these things.
Yeah.
And I need you guys to help coach me. So when you feel that I'm doing something, you know, we had like a communication protocol, and I would typically always break the communication, as I'm doing with your podcast today. I'd say, I need you to help me. I need you to tell me, because sometimes
podcast now, Shawn, by the way, it was just meant to be a quick live. Now this is a podcast. Carry on. I'm here for
but that's the kind of transparency. It didn't make me weak. It made me better.
Yes.
And it made our organization better, but it also helps people understand how they model behavior and how they model process. You can't tell them, you need to do this, but I don't need to do it. And so everybody's got to be held accountable to setting up structures and the way you do it. But what it does is it creates clarity. And candidly, the end result is a fantastic experience for your customers. Because a well-aligned, well-oiled, communicating, highly motivated team typically takes care of your customers better than one that's not. So if you're looking for, like, if you say, well, I don't really give a shit about, this whole culture thing, the end result is that if you don't do it well, your customers are going to have a lousy experience. And you can see that today, people are using AI to create a more efficient system for their clients. And it's all in the service of saving money, but not in the service of a better customer experience. Mm-hmm. And so for sure, if you can use enabling tools to do things better, we used Excel, that's an enabling tool. But if you're not putting and making sure there's humans behind it, running it, holding it accountable, and giving a shit about your customer, typically you'll find that the customers that provide the worst, let's call it triaging experience, are the ones that don't have a lot of competition. Government, utilities or whatever, health insurance companies. But if you're in an exceptionally competitive industry where you've got competitors that will take your clients in a heartbeat, where your clients have portability, they can move, they can go in a day. If you're not paying attention to your people, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. We ate everybody's lunch. We were so small, and we were so underfunded, and we just took everybody's lunch. We ate all the big guys' lunch, and then we became a much bigger company. And when we were larger, we got very worried. I said, because the two things that can kill us is arrogance and complacency, arrogance or complacency, and so that became our new rallying cry. It's like, don't start believing your, what.
The foundation was there. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off, Shawn. But I have to. It's that foundation, like you said, is there, and then the execution of that is key, because it's so easy to lose your way, right? As a leader, you've drawn quite a crowd here, by the way. A lot of people, including Brett, who I had on early in the week. We've moved on a little bit from this topic, but asking why. We have a few fans of that concept. That's the building trust piece. Brett and I talked about, what are those leaders you want to run through a wall for? It starts with the trust. And this is one of the ways that you built that trust. Another friend of mine, David, here he is, also agrees. It's so important. You got to be able to ask why, always, as a leader and an employee. Always ask why. And this then leads to that meaning and enjoyment we get from our work. If we don't have that ability or safe place to do that, like you said, Shawn, we're not growing. And pretty soon you're going to lose your best people. And of course, we have another future speaker with us today, Chris Grimm. You mentioned Chris as a coach. I'm going to get her in to talk about her experiences of working, again, in multiple organizations, including Feedonomics, other Fortune 500 companies, the bigger companies, and seeing some of the ways that they build and don't build or lose trust and make their environments less enjoyable. So this is absolute gold, Shawn.
Marc, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but we have a little bit of time for your podcast.
Of course.
It's interesting. That's just a thought that I had. A lot of people, they look at like the people component, this people empowerment, kind of like people optimization construct as kind of being a cost center. And so, a lot of times, as long as we're doing well, then we'll keep on doing this stuff. On the contrary, it's the thing you need the most when things are tough.
Yes.
Because when things are tough is when you've got to ask people to really sacrifice and to really roll up their sleeves and to work under a tremendous amount of pressure. Yep. And so if you're not teaching, it's the same in sports. If you're not teaching your players how to play under pressure, how to perform when they're behind, when they're injured, when things are tough, they don't even have the ability to work themselves out of it. And so if you're not teaching your employees how to function under pressure, under stress, how to use the left brain versus the right brain. All of these, if you look at the whole world of psychology and neuroscience, you'll find that this is not like namby-pamby kind of kumbaya stuff. This is wired into human beings. And so if you really want your employees, which are a very expensive part of an organization, it's ignorant of business owners not to try and absolutely get the most out of them. And that's why you'll find these NFL teams, they're all making $10 million, $20 million. And how come some of them are crap? And how come there's one or two that figure it out? Because they're unlocking those marginal gains, which gives them a competitive advantage. And in business and in sports and in life, you win on the margins.
Yeah. We also talked about cohesion, right? And retention is such an important metric for any company. When you retain your people, they get to work together longer, over a longer period of time, and that's your competitive advantage when they form that cohesion, because they know each other inside out. They've built that relationship. They understand how each other works, how to work to each other's strengths and potential liabilities. It takes time. So if you can keep people together, then you create that cohesion. And when you look at the sporting world again, and we know people that study this, there's data that supports the longer your players in key positions or team in general have been together, the better your results, the better your cohesion number. And that relates to business, as you're saying as well.
I mean, even if people are acquiring a business, it's a performance metric, right? If you're buying a company and you look at their tenure and you see how long people have been there, and and how many of them have been there, and their retention numbers, that's for me an indicator of a healthy company. Obviously, there's other metrics. Are they growing? Are there profits? For sure. But at the end of the day, looking at the employee metrics, looking at Glassdoor, when I left, it's something that I'm really proud of as a company. We were a 4.8 Glassdoor when we left.
Wow.
That's high. And our retention rate was in the 90s, and our satisfaction ratings were, and that's not because of me. It's because of everybody that was there was in the 96%, in the mid 90s. Unheard of.
It is unheard of. Industry leaders for sure.
Yeah, and we were exceptionally competitive. It wasn't like we weren't a non-profit organization. So if you can get to those places, and every one of those things took focus and work and effort. And one of the most important things of satisfaction scores is it's not about having a high satisfaction score. It's about benchmarking yourself. In anything you do, if you want to get better at something, you got to know where you start. We're speaking about our sleep scores, like before we started. You don't know if you're sleeping better unless you actually getting data that tells you are. Yeah. Other than just feeling good or bad in the next day.
Yeah.
So your satisfaction scores give you feedback about the areas, not that you're good at, about the ones that you're good at, you got to continue being good at, but it's the ones that you're weak at, or the departments where you're not really doing well, so that you can hone in and say, okay, we've got issues here. We've got to go in and sort them out. People are overworked, or they're not really being led properly, or whatever. So these are all of the elements you put in place to actually target the areas in a company where you can get better, stronger. To use a rugby analogy, our backs are really good, but we're struggling in the scrums, So you got to go get better at that if you want to have the complete organization succeed better.
Shawn, so much. If we can distill all of these wonderful leadership lessons into 3 points. Good luck. 3 points. What are 3 things that leaders of companies can do to create a high-performing culture that's also enjoyable?
Three things is they've got to recognize the competitive advantage of having an optimized workforce, what that will give them. They got to like realize that. And there are a lot of business leaders that don't really get it. And so candidly, they're probably not going to win. Now they might do well. So there are companies that make money, because a lot of people point to companies that have none of this stuff and they do very, very well. And their culture is one of, you drive people through incentive or through fear. And in this new environment now, I think that's becoming even more pervasive, right? Because there's this kind of sort of Damocles of AI hanging over everybody's head. So it's like, well, we don't need to treat you so well because we could replace you with a computer, right? But after that, then what? You're still left with some people. And now how do you, when the new level playing field is, we all got the tools, now how do we win? People still are the critical element in selling things, in supporting customers, in taking care of patients, whatever that thing is you think you can replace. And so if you don't, so this is number one, you got to realize the value. And if you don't, it's going to just be a waste of your time.
Yeah. It's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah. The other one is, I do think that you've got to have an element in your DNA that gives a shit about paying it forward. Because this whole concept is not just about creating a good year or a good year of performance. It's about creating high performance at its core is about creating sustainable excellence. Doesn't mean you're winning all the time. It just means that you're always competing at a very high level. And so if you're not in it for the long run, and if you don't really care about what a person will do when they leave, or about what's happening with them in their life and in their, if you don't really care, it's kind of going to be a waste of your time as well. So I think that's the second thing they got to be ready for. And the other thing is they got to want to win, because I think all of this is the cornerstone of being able to execute excessive competitiveness. Which is so counterintuitive to how people look at this culture thing. They go like, culture, schmulture. For me, I'm a competitor. You've played pickleball against me, right?
Not enjoyable. I'm kidding. It was.
No, I mean, you're a fantastic player, but I'm just saying that because I managed to steal one off you the last time. But
it's not true.
It's at the cornerstone of competitiveness. Having a healthy organization gives you the best opportunity to do well. And then the other thing is, look, we're all going to die one day, right? And so it's, how are people going to remember you? They're not going to come and say, oh man, you made so much money with that business. They're going to say, how did you impact me? How did you create an organization that when I leave, I'll think back on it and I'll think, when I go to another company, I can bring some of that there. I build it into my toolkit. And so that's a tremendously fulfilling thing if you can do that as an organization, as a human being, to empower people to have more in their back pocket than just a paycheck. I think those are the three things. I just made them up right now, but I think those are the ones.
They're great. I mean, there's many, obviously, but you, and we talked about it throughout this chat, but to distill it down, if you, and the way I hear that is, if you're a leader of an organization wondering how I can create this sustainable, high performance, enjoyable workplace that we're describing here, if they take care of those three things, they're on the way. And I just want to finish with one thing before we wrap up, because it made me think about my rugby career. We've talked about rugby a lot as a good analogy and sport, but you mentioned how are your people going to remember this as well? Not just how can we get results and keep results and line our pockets and make money. And competitiveness obviously helps that, but the competitiveness that you're talking about also helps people remember fondly their experience at that workplace. And I think that's important, and to be driven by that's important. When I think back to one of my rugby teams who did not win the title, yes, striving for winning is important, being competitive is important, but there's one particular team that I remember where we were fighting for our lives to stay up in the top division. We were going to get relegated. This is in the English Premiership. And midway through the season, new coaching staff. We were just doing what we could from the inside out to create an environment that was competitive, but we tried different things. We needed more cohesion. We needed more connection. We needed more self-awareness and accountability. And we stripped everything back midway through the season. We're in the bottom of the table, the bottom two. And if we kept going the way we were going, we were going to drop to the next division down. And that would be catastrophic for the club. Many people would lose their jobs. So there was now a goal that was way bigger than ourselves, and we took on the challenge together. And the way that we created that, the bond that we built with each other, with this centralized goal that was so important and people's livelihoods mattered, we didn't get relegated. We obviously didn't win, which is what everyone's trying to achieve, the trophy, the title. But that experience was so satisfying to me. I have lifelong friends from that to this day that we still connect with. That's what I remember. Not the title, not the money I got paid, but it was the environment that was created, how I grew as a person during that, and the life lessons that I took from that as well. Here I am talking about it 20 odd years later. So I just wanted to jump on that point. Everything you're saying is just spitting truths all over the place, Shawn Lipman. We've gone probably twice over time, but I don't care because that's what we do. And we're going to have a lot of great learning lessons from this. I hope everybody enjoyed this as much as I know you did. Shawn, did you enjoy this?
Yeah, listen, it's dangerous when, you bring me out of the closets after a couple of years and you put me back in the field, right?
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of pent up. So, that's the mistake you made, but thank you. Thanks for bringing me here. Obviously, I love talking about this. It's a very big part of what gets me up in the morning. And so really happy to have the chat with you, Marc.
Thank you, Shawn. I appreciate it as always. Now, how can we find you if we want to connect with you? Maybe there's some businesses that need some advising, some consulting. Podcasts.
You through LinkedIn. Yeah, look, I'm not, this is not, I'm not looking to make a career of this, but I do love helping people. As you can hear, I love hearing the sound of my voice. So, no, I'm happy to help the right people. But as I said, we discussed it yesterday. This thing's not for everybody. It's really not. And then that's the thing is, people think that it's a quick fix, and I'm not really interested in speaking to people who aren't truly trying to make a difference with how they want to compete in this world, because that's ultimately who wins, the people that win on the margins.
Wow, what a way to finish. Mic drop moment. Shawn Lipman. Thank you as always, my friend. You are just an incredible leader, and go and practice that pickleball backhand. No, I need to practice my backhand because I know how you get me.
No, I stole that one past you. That's why I'm not inviting you to come back.
Nope.
I know that it's going to not be fun next time. Bye, Marc.
Lipman, get into your day. Great to see you as always. Thank you so much, my friend.
Bye.
Oh, so energizing, those conversations with Shawn, obviously. And I know he jokes around a lot about speaking too much, but I could just listen to him all day. When he speaks, it's just nothing but truths the entire time. He's so eloquent, articulate, and he has a wealth of leadership experience under his belt in business, in sport. And it was an absolute privilege to have him with us today. Well, that was number 2 of many more in these coming weeks. Number 3 will be upon us on Tuesday next week. Stay tuned for the invitation. I have another special guest. And until then, you can find me at Winning EQ, marc@winningeq.com if you want to email me, or on LinkedIn. Check out the spelling of my name right there. Thanks, everyone, for showing up today. Have a wonderful rest of your day.